right, we're recording. All right, so what we're going to do now with our weight log, we have it saving our data to a text file. And the next thing we want to do is graph that information. But before we do that, I wanted to show you a problem we have with our interface so far. So if we run this, it should start up my building. It'll start up my. Oh yeah, we didn't do that either. I'll have to come back to that. Shoot, I forgot about that. It's a problem with two different classes doing the same thing. I should make iOS just games or something. Make it more fun. I think that's what we'll do next quarter for iOS. But it's only 2 days a week, so. Actually, no. I changed it to 4 days a week, 5 days a week, but only for the first 4 weeks because it's only 2 credits. So I get the rest of the.
Dave's little Android man on iOS.
Come on.
Yeah, I played around with that the other day.
That little Android.
Yeah.
All right, so if we go to our height or our weight, because of the way this is set up as a simulator, it uses the keyboard that's built into the machine, so I can type a weight on the keyboard, right? Yeah. So if I change this, the problem is when you run this, I don't have a a hardware keyboard. So I have to change under the hardware for the simulator, the keyboard, to use the software keyboard, which is what pops up when I click on a text field. So this pops up, I can type in some numbers. I can go to the next one, type in some numbers. And then I click somewhere else, and the keyboard is still there. How do I get rid of the keyboard? I can't get rid of the keyboard. So that's a problem because this keyboard actually hides a button. I can't do anything else. So we have to get rid of the button somehow. Get rid of the keyboard. So the best way, there's 1,000 ways to do this, and all of them were complicated. So I found a pretty good way to do it. If we change our view, my file's done yet. I have to override a method in my view controller. So for my weight log, we need to override a method called touches begin. And this deals with it deals with touching anywhere on the interface. So somebody putting their finger anywhere on the interface. So when that happens, we have to tell it to get rid of the keyboard, basically, is what we're going to do here. So this says, doesn't override it. So, I got to turn my recording back on. All right, so my code looks like this. So we're overriding a method that is given to us because we're a view controller. Remember, we're inheriting from this view controller class. So the view controller has all kinds of things that deal with touches and gestures and all kinds of stuff that we're not going to get into right away. So this just says if somebody touches the view, I need to do something. And so for this particular view, I want to call end editing, and that will close the keyboard. That's all it does. All right, so let's, and this is on my log view. So let's run it again. And I'm over here, I type in some stuff, and I click somewhere else. Now the keyboard goes away.
Beautiful.
Nice, eh? So not too bad. There's a lot of ways to do this, and if you search for this, they have code that goes from this to 20 or 30 lines of code to do that.
Why doesn't it inherently do that?
Yeah, exactly. I think that should be automatic. I don't know why.
And we need to put that in both views.
Yeah, so I'd have to do this for my BMI view, my main view controller. The beach ball of death. So let's call that. There we go. So this is the main view controller, and I just have to put that in my code over here, and that should let my other one work as well. So if I type in here and click somewhere else, it goes away. Nice. So I can click anywhere on the view, and iPhone users are used to that. That's what they expect to have happen. There's also ways of modifying the keyboard to add a little button that says hide the keyboard. I mean, there's just lots of ways to do that. I had to deal with this when I wrote my first apps, and I didn't catch it because the simulator uses the keyboard, and this is easier to use.
Yeah.
So you don't think about it. And I the first one I wrote, I didn't test on my machine, my actual iPhone, and I uploaded it. So that was a problem. I had to release a new version right away. That was just stupid, right? So in the simulator app, under hardware keyboard, you can say toggle the software keyboard, or uncheck this guy. That should do it as well, so that if I click on any edit view, it pops it up. But I don't like to use that, so, but at least it fixes the problem that is hidden by the simulator. All right, any questions on that? We're not using anything that comes into us. We can do all kinds of stuff, like find out where the event was, where the touch was in coordinates. And in the newer versions of the iPhone, they also have, they call it a 3D touch. So depending on pressure, it's a pressure sensitive touch. So if I push really hard, I get a 3D layer of pressure plus X and Y coordinates. So it's cool, but you got to deal with that in your programming too. All right, any questions on that?
Just make it pop up when people push hard.
Yeah, stop it. You're hurting me.
Ouch.
Ouch. Yeah, that'd be good. A little ouch function. I love it. I love it. All right, so now we're going to go in, now that we know how to do that, we're going to add a new view to our app so that we can display the chart data. So I add a new view controller over here, and it's huge. And it's blank. And then I have to attach a class to control this, right? So we do a new file that is a Cocoa Touch iOS class. We're going to call this my chart view controller. It's going to inherit from the UI view controller, and I want to write it in Swift. So we say next, and tell it where to save it. This is going to save it inside of my project. And there we go. Got a chart view controller with the basic data that I need to start it up.
They'll allow you to write in Objective-C on one view and then a Swift
Yeah.
in another?
Yeah, because they're so
So similar?
so intertwined right now. They haven't gotten rid of all of the Objective-C yet. And they might never, I don't know. So we have our little view here. Let's bring up our storyboard, and now make this automatic so that it shows whatever view I'm clicking on. I like that. So we can switch back and forth. So this guy, we need to connect with an arrow, which is called a what? An arrow. It's the little thing you ride around with that's on two wheels.
Segue.
Segue, there you go, segue. So we need a segue between these two views, and we typically attach it to a button. So I'm going to add a button over here to my view, and we'll call it view chart.
I was just the native Russian was the one to guess segue. Right?
Yeah,
For like,
I know. You're going, huh? What the heck is that? Okay, that's funny. Did good.
It's a French word. Oh.
Yeah,
It is. It's
French
French.
word, yeah.
Yes. Do you know French, Carol? No. All right. So we have to attach this as a segue. So I'm going to control click on my view chart and drag it over to the view. And we want it, the action segue, we want this to show. And so that creates a little segue going back and forth.
Is it being deleted if I chose wrong?
To delete the segue,
Yeah.
it should be over here in the connections. Nope. Yeah, here it is up here. Triggered segues. You can just delete it from there. All right, and then we need a control for that button to do something. And we'll go back and take the code that we had from here. This says log this data, and we had a function that said switch to logger. So I'm going to copy that and put it over in my wait log and drag a new action for my wait log. Oops, I don't want it there. Put it, I don't want it there either. Come on. So we'll put it, we'll call it switch to chart. And it's not an outlet, it's an action. We say connect, and we'll put the code in here that we need. Oops, what was that? Switch to chart, gotta use the right keyboard stuff. And it's hard to read when it collapses it like that. So we're going to switch this perform segue with identifier. So we have to make an identifier for our segue. So I'm going to call it switch to chart. And then in the segue itself, if I click on that, seriously, where's my segue? Change. Hmm. There it goes. Wow. It was not showing up and giving me the properties all the time. So I wonder if I'm not clicking. Nope. Weird. So we call this, we have to give it an identifier switch to chart. And just like our segue over here, switch to log. That should be enough to bring up our view controller for our chart. So let's see if that works. All right, so we click to log this data. I click to view chart, and we get a nice little crash. Good. So these crashes usually deal with those connections that we draw. So if we look back up here, we can say there's no segue with identifier switch to chart.
With the lowercase s.
Was it?
I think so. Maybe.
So we'll look at our, back to the project view, stop this, look at this code. Come on, switch. Fine. We want to look at the, nope, we want this guy. We want to look at the view chart code and make sure that those match. Switch to chart, but the identifier was capital. And then, see, it doesn't change all the time. I click on that. There we go. Huh. I knew it was there. I typed
Seen
it.
it.
Switch to chart. Still there. Click on something else. Make sure it's still there. Go to another segue. Switch to calc. You should probably be consistent with your naming. Switch to chart. There we go. So,
One lowercase, one uppercase.
yeah, that's not good programming. Be consistent. I'm not real good at that, as you can see. So now view chart. There we go. So we got a blank little view over here that we can start to draw in now. I have no way to get back, so we need the same kind of a concept, but we'll work on that later. All right, so that's just like we did in the weight log. Any questions on that? Switching from view to view. It's actually, this part anyway seems a lot simpler than the Android with this storyboard.
Yeah.
I like the storyboard concept. That's fairly new.
The way they set up the segue is a little weird, but
It is a little weird, yes.
It's not so tedious as Android, though.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to add a bunch of buttons or labels or whatever.
Yes, very painful. All right, so the next thing we want to do is to draw in the view somehow. So the easiest way I've found is to add an image view over here. And so first of all, I'm going to show you what not to do. But it gives us an idea of how to draw in a view, which is important concept at least to understand. So I might have an image view that takes up the entire screen. maybe leave some room up here for some buttons or something. And I'm going to draw inside this view itself. So I need to have the view. I don't know why it comes up with this H file instead of. It's not even an automatic. That's weird. So I want to go to my ChartViewController, and I need an outlet for this so that I can figure out what to do with that. Come on. Why is it not letting me do anything? What am I missing? Oh, that's what I'm missing. So in my view, I never attached the view to this code. I have to tell this view that this code is what's going to control it. And that's done under the properties, and I tell it it's the ChartViewController class. There we go. That's what I missed. So now I should be able to drag over here and make myself some outlets. We'll call it my chart image. And then I can play around with the chart image. And now I have to get back to my code here. Files finished. Come on. Oh, there it is. No, that's not what I want. I need my notes. And somehow I lost my file. Oh, there it is. All right, so in my chart controller, I've got an image. Shit, here we go. All right, back again. So,
Automatically switch so you can see view controller when it's clicked on.
Under this, well, first of all, you have to have these two circles selected. And then under where it says manual, switch to automatic. And then when I click on a view, it should bring up that controller's view. Click on this one, it brings up my weight log controller. ChartViewController. All right, so I have my chart image. I have to do a few things to associate this view. I have to, since I'm going to draw this image myself, instead of letting, attaching a picture to that image, I have to call a function called add subview. And the view is going to be my chart image. Right, that adds it so that I can play with it like an image. And then I'm going to create a function and set this image. So this is where I could set this programmatically to a resource, like a picture, instead of using the properties over here. But I want to set the image of the image, which is strange, and I'm going to call my own little function, draw, we'll call it draw chart. And the size, I have to pass it a size. I probably shouldn't call it draw chart. Draw Dave's chart. How about that? Because that's conflicting with something else I'm playing with. Draw Dave's chart, and it's going to be the size. I'm going to pass in the bounds of the image, which comes from where, do you think?
From, gotta come from this. Screen size?
Let's see the image view.
This guy, this size, right? So if I change this in the view over here, it's going to change the size on this side, right? So that comes from the view itself, all right? Because of this chart image is how I connect to this image view on that side. So I'm getting an error because there is no method. Oh, it's called, well, first of all, it's called chart image. And I should get an error saying there's no method called draw Dave's chart. There we go, good. So I need to create this method. So it's a funky funk. Draw Dave's chart. And I need to accept the size as something called a CG size. And I'm going to have this return a UI image. So I'm going to create an image programmatically is what we're doing. All right, any questions on that so far? So this guy will return an image eventually, which gets stored in the image property of this on-screen image view. So,
Confusing at all.
no, doesn't that make sense? So instead of just assigning this an image that I have in my project, I'm going to create one programmatically and set it to this image. All right. So when we're drawing, just like the Android side, we need what they call a context. A context is just an object that represents this image that I'm going to draw. You could think of it that way. So I'm going to have to call these long methods a UI graphics begin image context, and I give it the size, which I'm getting from the incoming parameter here. And like you would think, I would have a corresponding at the end a UI graphics end image context. So in between here, I'm going to do some drawing and etc. So the first thing, I need to get this context that I just created. This is creating basically a new context. So I need to get that, and we're going to call it context. And we're going to say I need to get the graphics, UI graphics get current context. That makes sense, right? Now I can do all kinds of drawing stuff. And drawing, you have to set things like the color of the pen, the width of the line, the
Starting and ending points?
starting and ending points, and they have a blending mode as well that we're going to set that would overlay on top with an alpha channel. So it's a transparency kind of a thing. So using this context, we're going to, there are all of these CG context methods. There's adding an arc, a line, a path, a rect, clipping, which deals with things like in Photoshop when you create clip paths, drawing another image, layers, PDF pages, lots of methods that I can do with the context. All right, so we're going to call the first one, we're going to begin a path, and we have to pass in our context every time. And that starts a path that we're going to add points and lines to, and it'll eventually draw all of that. So the first thing I want to do is move to a particular point, and we pass our context in, and I give it my X and Y coordinates. So I want to move to, say, 50, 10, so X and Y. Then I want to CG context, add a line using my context again, and add line, to point. And so I give it, where do I want this to go to? So a line has to have 2 points. So the X, I'm going to make my X 10 and my Y like 300. Oop.
So you're making it smaller on the one side.
Yeah, so, and I'm doing this on purpose just to show you the coordinate system. All right, then, so that's my one line I'm going to draw on the screen. But I can also set some information about the line, like the line cap, which is what the ending of the line looks like. Sometimes they look like, I can't use it on this one, shoot. Sometimes they look like a rounded end to the line. Sometimes they're square ending to the line, and you only see that if you have a width that's bigger. So we're going to make the line cap, let's see, where is it? It's a CG line cap. It's an enumerator, and we're going to call it round. So we want it rounded at the end. Then we can set, and there's a lot of setting things I can do. I can say it's a dashed line. I can set the width, shadows, colors, all kinds of fun stuff. So we're going to set the line. Sorry, we're running out of time here, aren't we? Set the line
About
width.
to get bum rushed by everybody in the
I know. For our context, and we'll set it to something like 4.
By the way, you're missing the context in your third line.
Thank you.
And your context.
Set line width, and then let's just set the color. Set color, set RGB. Of course, it's not just color, it's RGB stroke color, because you got to have a long thing in there. And so we have context, we have a red, and red, these are just RGB values. It goes from 0 to 255, just like in CSS. So we'll make it a strong red, and no green and no blue, and 1.0 for the alpha, which is full-on opaque. Jeez. And we'll forget the blend mode. Let's finally I can draw it. Stroke path that I created. and that will draw it to this context. Then I have to get the image that it created so that I can set it and return it. So I want to get image from current image context. Oh my God, that's long. Thank God for IntelliSense there. Then I have to, I need an equals. That's a minor thing. Then I close my context and I'm going to return my image that I just created as the return for my Draw Dave's chart, which sets the property for the chart image view on the screen to the image that I just drew. Is that painful or what?
Holy smokes.
So let's run it and hopefully we'll actually get something. So I got to go to my chart. Oh, isn't that great? So I started with the X of 10 and a Y of like 300. So it went off the screen here. And you see the end is rounded a little bit. But why does it go down?
Because the X and Y must be backwards.
Yeah, so X goes horizontally across this way, but the Y is flipped, and Y increases going down the image. So you have to flip your coordinates all the time.
Why do they do that?
It's because of how the graphics in the screen starts at 0, 0 up here.
Yeah.
And they draw it from left to right
Yeah, we had
in
to
a
deal with
positive
that.
direction down the screen.
In Java.
Yep, same thing. Almost every graphics system you'll deal with draws downwards. So. All right, that's it. Sorry.
I just wanted to see the code on that.
Okay, let me stop.